Here's the answer.
I'm going to go over the hearing aid repair tree I've made for you. First step, does your hearing aid turn on? To know if your hearing aid is turned on, you might hear some sort of a startup sound. You could potentially see the lights flashing on the hearing aid when it turns on. Those are pretty good indicators that the hearing aid is turning on. If the hearing aid is definitely on, and especially if you can hear the startup sound, what I tell people is to grab a hold of the hearing aid and put it right next to their ear. You don't want it in your ear, but next to it, and you might hear a startup song like boop a doop boop or something like that. If that sound is loud and that is clear, then typically it means your microphone is plugged up. And that would involve a brush or potentially bringing it into a professional practice and having moisture pulled out of it. But if your hearing aid turns on because you're seeing the lights flash, but you cannot hear the little startup sound at all, really good chance it's only the wax trap, wax filter, Ceru stop, whatever your verbiage wants to be, and that simply needs changed. As a reminder, all wax traps are manufacturer specific, so you do need to make sure you have the correct brand, otherwise it won't fit in and it could potentially fall out in people's ears and then they got to get it dug out. It's a whole thing. So really make sure you have the correct wax trap on it, and later in the video I show you how to change that. Now let's go right back to the beginning of that tree. If the hearing aid doesn't turn on at all, like no lights are flashing, there's definitely no startup sound, then I would verify that the hearing aid is charged if it's one of the newer rechargeable hearing aids, or change the battery. But I just put in a new battery. Doesn't matter, you can put in brand new batteries that don't work. If these steps aren't working, the best thing to do is simply bring it in to your local hearing aid professional. A lot of times you can just bring the hearing aid in to the hearing aid professional. The resident, if you happen to be at an assisted living place, can just stay there, because obviously it's much easier to just bring in a hearing aid than to load someone up in the van and that whole shindig. So here's the answer. We're happy to help you. I don't care where you got your hearing aid. We're here to help the community. I want to make you hear as well as you can. You don't need an appointment to come into Here's the Answer to look at a dead hearing aid. You won't be charged for us to look at a dead hearing aid. We're simply here to help. The rest of this video is going to be the specifics on how to address the problems I described on my hearing aid tree. Let's start with a custom product. The areas we want to look at are going to be in the filter here. Then you can see I have some wax in that area there. And the last area you want to look is on the top. They typically have some sort of a cover. If you can't see the holes, the sound cannot get in. This big hole that goes all the way through, that's kind of what allows your ear to breathe. You can see, sorry if you get grossed out by wax, but there you go. You're gonna have to use a little bit of a wire pick of sorts to pick that out. And then the last piece is this little filter area. Now the hard part with the filter is these are manufacturer specific. So you have to have the correct brand. You know, this brand happens to be a Phonak hearing aid here. Now a little cheat, quite often if you just grab your fingernail, you can gently pull that off. If you were to pull that off and the hearing aid started making noise again, then it's just the filter needing plugged, and you can go to your local hearing aid provider and they can get you some more. If you happen to have some right there, then you could simply take your little piece here and put it back in like that. The normal way you would pull that out would be to simply use the back side of that to pull it out like that, but the fingernail works with a lot of them. All right, here's the supplies we use to clean our hearing aids. We have our Ceru stops, or what we like to call wax traps here. This comes inside of the box. And then we have our little brush and a little pick there to clean it out. So the areas that gets plugged up on your hearing aid are right in here. It's that earpiece there. So to get this off, we just grab it and pull it off. Now you can see we have that little filter there. To change that, I will simply grab a new stick. As you can see, we have a new one on that end, and that end is blank there. So we take the end with nothing on it and we simply put it in. It pulls the old one out. I flip it over. New one goes in. That's how we change our filter. If you look at our little earpiece here, there's a little hood right there. And that is where we put our little wire pick through to clean it out. So you can see I'm doing that. You can put it down through there. There's nothing you're going to hurt in this rubber earpiece. And then once that is cleaned out, we simply put it on here and just push it against your finger like this. Now we have the earpiece back on. And if our hearing aid has any gook on it, that's what your microfiber cloth is for. Use that to wipe things down. We do not want to use water on this. Just use the microfiber cloth if you have any issues. The other spot that can plug up are the microphone ports. We have one here at the top, one here at the bottom. And with those guys, that's what our little brush is for. We take our brush and we just push this all the way through. And that will clear out those ports. Some of your people you're caring for might have what we call a BTE, or a behind the ear hearing aid, the ones with these tubes. Now what can happen, especially in the summertime, is these tubes can plug up with water, and so no sound's getting out. Now the water is probably just going to be moisture built up from their ear, but what you need to do is grab it up top there and pull it off. Sometimes if this tube is too hard, you're actually going to have to take a razor blade to this. Careful of your fingers, I can tell you from experience, to cut that part off. And then if we can take this tube and we pull the whole thing out, you can actually see there's some moisture that's built up in that there. There's a little bit of water right there. So no sound would actually be getting out of this. So one of the things that I know is done, I'm not recommending this to be clear, is people have been known to blow on the top part of that to blow it out. An air compressor would be great. You know, something like you could blow on, use for your keyboard would be another one. But realistically, once you get the water in this, this entire thing needs changed. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you still have any more questions, please give us a call. We're here for the service after the sale. Remember, like, subscribe, and hit the button for notifications.
Hearing aids for life, here's the answer.